It surrounds us. It's everywhere. Tonight, you will hear from the people who live and work within these highly active locations, all in the efforts to discover America's most haunted. With your host, ghost hunter and author, Dan Terry.
Good evening, guys and ghouls, dudes and demons, and all you creepy, crawly creatures stalking the night fantastic. You have found the most haunted. I am your ghost host with the most haunted, Dan Terry, and we have got some really interesting stuff going on tonight. The guest, and this one is quite a capture. Miranda Young is a lifelong enthusiast, just like us, a lot of the folks out there. She would read every book in the school library about anything that's paranormal, supernatural, or just out of the ordinary. She joined a ghost team eventually, worked with them. She was like a specialist with photography and videos. And then on the side, she was riding her motorcycle around and photographing haunted places. That got so popular that in 2018, she began doing it as her own show. And since then, she's got Ghost Biker Garage, her own podcast, and she is part owner of the Scott County Jail, the very haunted Scott County Jail over in Tennessee. Check it out. I'm even wearing one of the shirts from there. You can see it, Scott County Jail. But yeah, this gal knows what she's talking about. She's been on several other shows. She's got the most incredible evidence. And we're going to bring her up right now. Miranda Young.
Hey, Dan. Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you agreeing to come on, especially from your jail cell there.
Absolutely. I'm sitting here at the historic Scott County Jail over in the visitation area.
And that place I know is incredibly haunted. And how long has it been open now?
So we opened in September of 2021. I was able to partner with Dr. Christy Sumner from Soul Sisters Paranormal, and we created History, Highways, and Haunts, LLC, and we approached the town of Huntsville and asked them about opening the historic Scott County Jail as a true crime museum during the day, but then during the evenings, we host after dark tours with flashlight tours, guided ghost hunts, and have it open as a paranormal research center for different paranormal investigation teams that want to come and spend the night. And
today's a special day for you, right?
Of course. Every day is a special day.
All right. So they're sitting in a part of the jail right now where visitation was.
Yes.
Where if some guy's girlfriend was leaving him, his wife was divorcing him, whatever was bad was happening, this is where he found out about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm actually on the inmate side. You know, if you were sitting in front of me or looking through the glass in front of me, you would see the side where the lawyer or the family would be able to come and visit. So so this side, it's quite small. It's about 6 by 6, and you know, right outside of this door is the processing area as well as the drunk tanks.
But you're telling me that place is very haunted, right?
It is. It is. I was actually the first person to investigate there back in 2014, way before it was opened to as a museum. But essentially, the jail was in operation from 1904 until 2008. In 2008, they closed the doors due to fire code violations and such, built a new jail, and it sat vacant. They did have dispatch over here for a little while, as well as a few administration offices, but essentially it was vacant. And so then in 2017, the town of Huntsville approached Scott County and ended up taking the jail on, getting it from the county. And they ended up getting a tourism grant for $75,000 where they came in, they painted it, they put new windows in, put a new heat and AC unit on all 3 levels, but it still continued to sit vacant. I know the mayor said he wanted to do something special with it, but he didn't quite know what. And so after they got the grant in 2017, it wasn't until we approached the town in 2021 with our business plan of opening up the museum as well as the research center that he was like, hey, you know, I love your passion. I love your vision. And this is what we want to do with the location. And so we came in and brought a ton of different exhibits for local true crime as well as law enforcement appreciation. And we've been, you know, trucking away, coming up with some really neat and interesting ideas. You know, we do motorcycle events here. We just had a blessing of the bikes 2 weeks ago, and I actually host haunted motorcycle rides myself through Ghost Bikers.
Really?
Yes, and so we're being able to incorporate the jail into that. So we have a lot of really unique and interesting plans that we've been able to implement, and some that we're going to start implementing this summer. That you know, we're excited just to make this location accessible to the public.
So you are into ghosts, police history,
Yes,
Jeeps, motorcycles. Yes. I think the main question is, where the hell was you before I got married? I mean, that's everything I'm into.
I mean, absolutely, you know, any opportunity for me to be able to really and truly combine these passions of motorcycle riding with the paranormal and with history and preservation, it's honestly just been a dream come true to be able to marry all of those together. And I've met some amazing people along the way.
Oh, that's really cool what you're doing. And I'm always wanting to see a historical place, especially jails with my background, preserved, because there's so much history. And the one of the ghost haunted places that was a former jail I went to had so many, the spirits were playful. They were happy for attention, and
yes,
was just really having a big time when I was in there.
That seems to be a lot of what we experience here at the jail because it was closed for so long. But what's interesting is, you know, the reports didn't just start after the jail closed down. We talked to different, you know, law enforcement officials as well as former inmates here that said they experienced things while it was open. And so, you know, to be able to get those stories and then to be able to come in and communicate with the spirits, I was truly amazed at just how, you know, let me just step back. A lot of the places I like to investigate are some of the lesser known, not overly investigated places. And so a lot of the time when you go into those, sometimes maybe the spirits may be a little bit quiet as far as communicating, but we didn't really experience that here at the jail. When we went in, we had the keys about 2 months before we opened. And so we really spent a lot of time sitting with the spirits and just, you know, sharing with them the different things that we were going to be doing when it came to this location as far as opening it up, because it had been closed for so long. So I was really impressed at just how intelligent the spirits are here as far as being able to communicate in various manners, and also their willingness. I mean, it's like you said, it's almost like a playful kind of, you know, we want to share our story, and they have really been sharing their stories here.
Well, lately I've been working now for the first time in my 30-year career, 35 years, a jailer. And I'm finding out that in life, the prisoners are just grateful for some fun, some attention, some kind of interaction. And I guess are the same way even after death. The ones I met were.
Yeah, and what we've noticed, and it's really interesting because we've had, at this point since we've been open, we've had about 25 teams come through, and we do countless numbers of flashlight tours. That's probably our most popular. And so what we're finding, and we really keep the numbers low when we do our guided tours and as far as the private investigations, we like to keep the numbers small, because we're finding if we have very, very large groups that come in, a lot of the time the inmates, they kind of shy away. It's almost like, you know, I don't know if it's just so crowded or if, you know, they just don't want to interact. And so we always tell people when that happens, try breaking up into groups of 2 or 3. But what's interesting that we've found over the last little bit, especially in the women's cell area, you can have a group of 6 women sitting in there. And if we're having a fun conversation and kind of joking around, you know, saying maybe some off-color stuff, that sort of thing, they really seem to like that. They love the attention. They'll join in. And it's amazing some of the responses we'll get from that. So what's been really cool about this whole experience is the fact of being able to do true research and spend day in and day out at this location and see what type of tactics and communication works, the size that works, the type of individuals that come in. To me, I can totally geek out on that because, we're really seeing that sort of thing, just like what you said, that it seems to be just the fun nature. The ones that come in and take themselves very seriously and, they get some great communication, especially if they're in law enforcement or social services or something of that nature. They really get some great experiences. However, if they're a large group and if they're coming in kind of a fun, lighthearted manner, that really seems to open up in certain areas of the jail.
That's cool. And that's just exactly the way I found out too. But before the jail, before you got into this incredible place, you were doing stuff on your own on the motorcycle, right?
Yes, sir.
What's some of the places you've been to like that?
So I've been to some of the most haunted and most historic and reportedly haunted locations. I started out investigating with a team, as you said in the intro, and I found, we were typically going somewhere once a month. If we weren't going to a commercial location, we were doing a lot of residentials. And I really, really learned a lot of great things from these great guys. I was the only female on a team of 5 at the time. And so learned a lot from these guys, really cut my teeth on some cool places. But I found that, I was traveling a lot for work. And when I was at home, I was also just out on the bike. And so it really kind of started with a lot of urban exploration and that sort of thing, of going to some of the places that have a really great history, but maybe people might not necessarily go to every day. And so I was putting those photos online and they started getting a whole lot of attention. Most of the time people were like, what's the story behind this place? Can we dig a little bit deeper? And is it haunted? And so I really sat back and started thinking, because my background is in marketing and graphic design. And so I thought, why not combine these and combine the motorcycling, the history, as well as the paranormal, and really create a brand that's me. And so I decided I wanted to put my episodes out as more of a season. And so release that in October. That way, being a solo investigator, it gave me time to really go in, dig into the history, and then go through my evidence. Because we all know, going through hours of evidence with multiple cameras and recorders takes forever. So to really get all that together and release it as a season. And so I found that I wanted to keep the episodes 20 to 30 minutes in length, just to keep people's attention. And then also not really spend a lot of time talking about the evidence, or excuse me, not the evidence, but the tools, but rather do a supplementary episode on Thursday nights where I would come on live and talk about the tools, the tactics, the techniques, and a little bit more about the location. And so through that, a lot of the places that I would visit were kind of the more lesser known. As a biker, you understand that it's not necessarily about the destination, but more about the road to get there. And so I was finding that along the way to get to some of these locations, you would pass through little small towns and such that had amazing history and stories. I always tell people that, and it sounds like a contradiction of being a location owner, but I always tell people it's like, you can't take a map and close your eyes and touch that map and not find a place that doesn't have some type of unique history or story. And so, it may be large and very well known, but it may also be something that's very known to the area. So a lot of the places that I visited were the Crag Miles Mausoleum, which is also known as the Bleeding Mausoleum. And that's in Cleveland, Tennessee. I covered a local legend about a phantom monk that ended up taking on about 3 episodes of season 1 and 2 of season 2. And that was one we call the Sunset Hill House, which we'll talk a little bit more later. And so that was actually taking a story from a book, 13 Tennessee Ghosts and Jeffrey. and following that story about this monk who perished in a train accident, and actually going and being able to investigate a haunted relic that was related to this. So really taking those small stories that you either find in books about local folklore, local legends, and really trying to bring awareness. You know, I can't tell you how many times people would reach out to me about the Bleeding Mausoleum and say, you know, I've seen this all my life, but I didn't know the tragic story of each member of the Cragmiles family that led to the building of this mausoleum. And then the local legend that goes along with it, with the blood spots that appear after it rains. Mm-hmm. So, you know, so that's a big part about what I like to do with Ghost Biker Explorations, is to encourage the travel, being a biker, talk a little bit about some of the history that's in these small towns, maybe just like a little tidbit people might not know, and then cover the reason I'm there through the history and then the actual investigation. So, you know, we have gone to some larger places, Brushy Mountain State Prison, the Willows Weep, Revenant Acres, Henry River Mill Village. We have gone to some larger ones, but in the grand scheme of things, a lot of these places are places that haven't been overly investigated, that are maybe not as well known as like Lizzie Borden or Waverly Hills.
And have you found the occasion when how do I say it? The reputation and the stories do not match what's actually happened historically. They may be more bloody, but this is way more intriguing when it's the truth.
Absolutely. I've actually found that quite often. And so I always like to know the history when I go to a place, but I don't always like to know the reported claims of what other investigators have gotten. Because for me, when I go in, I feel like a lot of the time, what we bring into the location, whether it be a preconceived notion or the demons inside ourselves, I think a lot of the time that affects the what we get at the location. And so one example of that is Willow's Weep, that's there in Cayuga, Indiana, and it has the reputation of being the most evil house in America. And I know it has a lot of reported claims as far as the history goes. A few of those claims I feel maybe a little bit embellished. The others, I think that, you know, there is historical fact to back it up. But I didn't want to know what other investigators had gotten. And so when I went in, it ended up actually being a fairly quiet night. And I did find that the spirits that were in that location, they didn't really want to talk to me very much. And they, the only time they talked to me was on a spirit box when I would leave the room. If I sat in the room with the spirit box or trying to establish communication, it was just very, very quiet. But as soon as I left, I was getting words on this spirit box that were, you know, germane to the history that I had heard. So then afterwards, I ended up reading a book about the location and actually listening to some of the different paranormal claims. And some people had had some pretty intense, crazy experiences in there, more on the negative side. Now, I'm always intrigued by the negative side of things. That's not really what I actively seek out. I seek out the more historical narrative. And so, you know, I mean, I even slept in this location, and, you know, I had reports from people that said, you know, they weren't able to stay in there. They couldn't sleep in there. So it's really interesting. I feel like sometimes the notion that we have when we go into a place, I feel that can really affect it. And so when I'm choosing these locations, I always look at, you know, because activity is not guaranteed. I always look at, okay, does this have an interesting enough history or story to tell that when I set up my episodes, and I kind of set them up in like an unsolved mysteries sort of way, where it starts out talking about the travel, and then I'm kind of walking somewhere and I'm telling the story kind of like Robert Stack would do. And, you know, I like to pick places that have an interesting enough history or an interesting enough story that even if we don't get any activity, or if it's not like what it's perceived elsewhere, at least it has an interesting enough story that folks will either want to travel there or want to look into it further for themselves.
So just to clarify, because I know there's people watching who's going to wonder if what they're hearing is accurate. You are alone going into these places of possible evil, which is what you were told, and sleeping there.
I do. Sleeping is one of the things I do like to do. So essentially, I either investigate by myself or I will investigate with a camera person. So it usually depends. The first couple episodes or the first couple seasons, I had someone else with me, and he did videography for me. And then, of course, when COVID hit, kind of switched things around a little bit, did a little more vlog style. And then on a couple episodes, I have had the opportunity to collaborate with other investigators. But yeah, one of the techniques I actually really enjoy doing, because I like to kind of really think outside the box when I'm doing investigating and essentially see what sort of triggers these spirits. And so, one of the things I started trying to do was sleep at a location. So if I'm at a location for just a couple hours, I like to investigate and move on. But if I'm somewhere where I'm there for 12 plus hours, I like to try to lay down and sleep for a couple hours, just very minimal hours of the investigation. I always will have a recorder going. I'll have a camera going. And I actually really love doing that, because some of the evidence that I've been able to capture has been completely different. I call it lazy investigating because you just get to just sleep. But it's interesting because the spirits, I don't know if maybe you're on a different astral plane, or if, for instance, they're just as curious about what I'm doing because maybe it's something they don't typically see. But the interaction totally changes for me when I'm sleeping in a location versus whenever I'm actively investigating. And I've had at times where I slept at a funeral home in Kosciuszko, Mississippi, and I ended up having a photo getting ripped off the wall. And during that time, while I was laying there asleep, at some point, I think I'd been asleep for about an hour and a half, you hear a conversation of two females out in the hall, and they're literally talking about me. And one of them says something along the lines of, there she is she okay? Yeah, she's okay. And so they're just having this conversation. So essentially become my own trigger item in that instance. But it is interesting to see how the activity changes when you do that.
Well, I'm sure you've got a lot of people's interest, plus the ones who's going to be sitting home saying, not me, she's crazy. Where can they find that? Where's your site so they can get on this and check it out?
Absolutely. So you can watch any of the past 4 seasons on the Ghost Biker Explorations Facebook channel, Ghost Biker Explorations YouTube channel, and www.ghostbikerexplorations.com. And so we're actually rolling into the 5th season, which is going to drop in October. It will drop every Tuesday night in October. And I just want to say, we do also do lives every now and then throughout the year, as well as vlogs. But the season is what the buildup is for. And so last season, we highlighted all haunted homes. So I was able to travel around and specifically do homes. So we're going to carry the theme out this year. And I'm doing all haunted jails for season 5.
Okay, I got to know, what jails are you going to? I've been to a bunch of them. So can you give us a little bit of idea?
I can give a little bit of a preview. So I'm going to be covering some stories here from the historic Scott County Jail, as well as the Old Stone Jail in Franklin, Kentucky, Gilchrist down in Trenton, Florida. And then also there's 2 others that I can't quite say just yet, but the Old Atala Jail in Mississippi. That's another one.
Okay.
But 2 others that I can't quite say just yet, but
right.
Yeah. We're excited to be covering that because they're so unique in and of themselves, and I'm interested. And I found that doing the theme actually really works for the season, so so excited about that.
Well, since we're on that topic, you did send us a evidence video while you were sleeping in a jail.
Yes,
I don't think I can sleep in a jail. Too many people. I've seen what these people are capable of, but seriously, where was you at? and then we'll see if we can get Race to run it for us.
Okay, so I was actually in a penitentiary at this point, and so it was Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary, which is in Petros, Tennessee, which is in East Tennessee, and so it is a maximum security penitentiary. It closed in 2009, and so it's actually now open as a tourist destination where you can do paranormal investigations. They have a distillery and a restaurant there. Because it's so close to my hometown and was sort of a fixture where I not far from where I grew up. I actually investigated it. I've investigated it 6 times at this point. This video comes from the 3rd time I investigated it. And out of the 6 times I investigated this location, it was 5 of those times were before it actually opened to the public. So it was interesting to see the progression of the construction that they did in turning this into a destination. So on this particular occasion, it was part of a 2-night investigation. And this was the very first night I had stayed by myself. And then the second night, I was going to be joined by multiple teams. And so I'm sleeping in the area known as the Hole, which is the solitary confinement area. There are 4 cells in there, and it's literally like going into a hole. Day or night, it is pitch black dark.
So once again, you're in solitary confinement in a maximum security penitentiary alone.
Yes, completely alone. There were the ladies that had invited me to come in and investigate. They were at the base camp, which when you see Brushy Mountain, it's a complex. And so the Hole is in its own building by itself. We had a camera outside position to make sure no one had come in, and also in my cell. And so it was about 8:30 in the morning. Whenever this was filmed, I was trying to get a couple hours of sleep. I slept for 3.5 hours and got about 3 minutes and 15 seconds of some of the best intelligent and residual activity I've ever gotten. And I do need to say that outside of the Hole there in its little building is the wood shop, as well as up above it, the laundry area. And there is no power in this entire building.
Just out of curiosity, have you considered a psychiatrist? I'm just really trying to help you here. Okay. Okay. Race, let's see this video and we'll prove she needs a psychiatrist.
In the Hole, about 8:30 in the morning. Gonna sleep for a little bit.
And there was no one else in there.
No, no one else at all. And, it was interesting. I was on a podcast with somebody after I had released that. And because I couldn't figure out the bouncing sound, and to me, it sounded like a ball bouncing, and so I was kind of talking about that and how puzzled I was. And so one of the gentlemen that was doing the podcast, he used to be in corrections. And so he said it actually really made sense because during that time, he said they would often give a rubber ball to the inmates because that was something they couldn't easily fashion a shank or anything with. So that actually kind of made sense that during that time in the 80s, in the 70s, whenever this would have been used, that, that it very well could have been a ball. Plus, again, no laundry running upstairs because there was no power. And again, to me, just the residual plus the intelligence. Somebody clearly knew I was there, but I thought there was also a lot of residual that was going on as well.
And there was some orb activity, which is in a building with no AC, no fans kicking in, nothing. Some of it looked like, dropping dust, but some of it was moving pretty purposefully.
Yeah, and that is one thing you can notice from that is it's pretty easy to tell, what could potentially be dust and what there was a lot of that was kind of had a controlled movement that could have potentially, like you said, a purposeful movement.
That's some of the most amazing evidence. Tell me, does that creep you out a week later when you're going through it and finding all this stuff?
So that was actually the first time that I had spent the night in a location and slept there. So I didn't know how it would react, because I always just actively investigated. And I thought this could be kind of fun to stay in a prison, plus, especially since it was a full weekend investigation. And that's actually the part I skipped to that first to go through because I was very intrigued to see if there was anything. And I'll tell you, when I went to sleep, I didn't think I'd be able to sleep, but I had some of the best sleep that I could have had. I don't know if I was just drained from the investigation or if I was being drained in the moment, but I laid down and I went right to sleep after about 20 minutes. I woke up a time or two thinking that somebody was talking to me, but I mean, it was just as quiet as can be. And so, after I went back and watched it, I was like, had I known that was happening in the moment, especially the night or the help, I probably wouldn't have slept very long there. But looking back again, that voice still kind of creeps me out. I very rarely get scared at these places. That's why I'm there. So I look forward to it and welcome the activity. But that.
It's always
makes
later.
Me think every time. It is always later.
That night was just awesome. I thought that was incredible. Plus, it's absolutely an intelligence.
Absolutely.
It knows what you're doing and is replying or confirming it or talking about it.
Yeah, and the footsteps. I've never had footsteps that loud. Now we have heard some stuff here at the jail. I mean, you're in these echoey buildings, but to hear that, I don't know. It makes me wonder if it was a guard that was walking up and doing checks, if it was an inmate. I do believe the help me was coming between the cells just from, where it sounded to be able to triangulate where other recorders were. Okay. But that to me was just clearly intelligent. It saw me there and, I don't know if it's one of those situations where it's like when you have a recorder out and you're actively investigating, it seems like sometimes they get quiet. I don't know if he wanted to be heard or if maybe he didn't realize, that because I'm sitting there asleep. I'm not really sure, but he was clearly intelligent.
He was. And like I said, he was commenting on something happening in the moment.
Yeah.
So that's not a residual in any way. That was just incredible.
Well, thank you.
What other, I know you sent me a bunch of them and they were really all amazing. What else do we have?
So another one that we have, this is actually while we're on the theme of sleeping in a location. So we have the Grand Old Lady Hotel, and has quickly become one of my favorite locations to investigate. And it is a hotel over in Balsam, North Carolina. It has right around 100 rooms, and they've essentially kept the rooms very rustic. Every room is different. They've kept them very rustic. I was there as part of a weekend-long investigation. The first night I was investigating by myself. The second night I had investigated with Soul Sisters Paranormal. So we ended up collaborating in, renting the hotel out, because they rented out during the closed season. So we rented the entire hotel out during the closed season, and we were there from when I investigated until the very next, the end of the weekend. And so the first night I actually stayed there by myself. The clip I've sent here is from the second night. We were inside of like a suite. And so Soul Sisters are two twin sisters, Christy and Jenny Sumner. And so they were in the back room, and I was in the front room there by the door. And so we had just laid down to sleep. We were just starting to doze off, and we captured this male voice. There were no men on the property. It was just myself and the other two ladies.
Okay. All right, Race, can we hit that one?
Did y'all hear that?
Yep.
What did that sound like?
Sounds like a man's voice.
That's what I thought. So I've kind of, after sleeping in these locations for a while, my Soul Sisters laughs at me because they're like, you didn't even move. And so if I actually hear the stuff in the moment, I've kind of conditioned myself to not jump up when something happens like that, because you never know what kind of false positive or what kind of activity you might disrupt. And so as soon as I heard the voice, I mean, because it was clearly a disembodied voice that we heard in the moment. And, I didn't want to like raise up, because I didn't want to like stir up any dust from the bed or disrupt anything that maybe you might have seen going on, because I didn't know what maybe we might have captured before and just after the voice. So that location is amazing, because there are some dark things that happen there, but for the most part, families and stuff would ride the train to the hotel, and that was their getaway. And that was essentially what a lot of the activity was like, of just these spirits that were kind of getting away. And so this one, again, Soul Sisters typically don't sleep at the locations, but if you're investigating with me, you just might be.
No, I got to meet Christy, and I was at a conference in West Virginia. She had the most intelligent and logical program that was, I just thought that was incredible. But I'm sure she takes everything in such a logical way, because I believe she's got a doctorate, doesn't she?
She does. She does. And so I couldn't think of a better business partner and a better person to collaborate with. We found that we had a very similar method of investigating, as well as our love for the history. And so she had been watching my show, and I'd been watching her show. And so we ended up collaborating at Henry River Mill Village for the first time, and had similar styles. We just carried it on. So,
all right. Well, Race, let's play that one more time, because now that we know what we're listening for, it was incredible.
Did y'all hear that?
Yep.
What did that sound like?
Sounds like a man's voice.
That's what I thought.
He sounds so sad.
He does.
It's almost like when I hear a child on an EVP. That just tears my heart.
Yeah. I mean, it just, to me, it was just clear of he's just like, please don't go. And, I don't know. And what was funny about that is we were kind of we had set our alarms because we had to leave out the next day. And so we had set our alarms to go. And so we had been talking about leaving just before. So I don't know if it was
Oh, okay.
intelligent in response to that, or if it was a residual of somebody who, maybe had met someone while they were there for the summer or whatever, and they were just, please don't go. So either way, it's, it has the possibility of being residual or intelligent.
Mm-hmm. Okay, how about another one, Race? Just throw.
Okay, so this one was that was taken here from our security camera here at the jail.
Mhm.
And so when we do paranormal investigations here, one of us stays in the gift shop office during the time, just in case we're on site but out of sight.
Mhm.
And so this was actually after our first investigation team had left. And so it was about 3:30 in the morning. They'd been gone about 30 minutes. It was just myself on the entire property. And so I was going to take some paperwork into the booking office to kind of close everything out. And so as I stepped out of the gift shop, I heard this rich hum. It was the deepest rich hum, and it was coming from the stairwell. It went for about 3 seconds, clears its throat, and goes for 3 more seconds, which 6 seconds is a long time in paranormal time.
Mhm.
So I was a little bit shaken, actually, because 1, I didn't have a recorder, and 2, I'm standing there like, did I just hear this? And so as I come in to the gift shop there, you can kind of see, because I'm sort of wringing my hands a little bit, that I'm like, did I seriously just hear this? And so I was coming back in to get my stuff, my computer and everything, to go home for the night. So the next morning, as I was on my way home, I called Dr. Sumner, because normally I work the night, she works the days. And so I was like, can you check the security cam footage to see if we captured this male humming? So she calls me the next day and she's like, we didn't catch that man humming because it was too far away. But she said there was somebody in the gift shop with you. And so to us, it clearly sounds like 2 men saying, one says, there she is, and the next says, not so loud next time.
Yeah.
And so again, they're aware, and they want you to know that they're aware of what's going on, what they're doing.
And you've noticed, I'm sure, that the more they get to know you, the more active they become around you. It's
Yes.
almost like you have to build a trust with them
Yes.
before they start talking.
Absolutely.
Race, play us another one, because that one was very self-explanatory.
People were even contacting us and saying that they were experiencing things happening at their home while they were actually watching live. It's been one of our most shared, watched, and viewed lives that we've ever done. And the activity started from the moment we were there until after we shut down the cameras.
Something in the bathroom. All right. You've been putting on a show for us. You can talk into this thing. Just come up to the red light. We encourage you to do that. Would not want to live in this house. 42 degrees.
Bathroom.
Bathroom.
Hello, you've been turning the flashlight on and off. Yeah, thank you. Flashlight turned on. Right when I said, I'm smelling a weird smell in here. Yes, it is the bathroom. Is that you?
I stepped away from it, still doing it.
Stinks in here. Flashlight is on too.
Oh my gosh, Miranda.
Yeah.
Oh, if I don't sit down, I'm gonna fall down.
Okay, make it stop, please. Huh? Yes, we do.
Okay, so first of all, I apologize for the annoying REM pod, but oh, I think you're muted. So essentially, just to kind of set that up, earlier on, I had mentioned about the monk who had perished in a train accident.
Mhm.
So this was part of the series. This was part of season 1 and season 2. This particular episode was episode 4 of season 2. And so essentially what I had done was I had taken this story, I investigated the train wreck site where the monk had perished, and then I was able to gain access to this house, which we ended up naming the house on Sunset Hill. It was an abandoned house, and supposedly the tub that they had inside of there, an old clawfoot tub from the late 1800s, was a tub that was used by the doctor who had taken the monk's body from the train wreck site. He had supposedly taken and dissolved the skin from the bones and used the bones in his medical practice. And so I investigated the wreck site, and then a friend of mine who had purchased the tub from an estate sale allowed me to come in and investigate in the home. While I was in the home investigating the tub, I was getting a lot of activity from the other floors of the house. And so I reached out to the homeowner and I'm like, hey, did you have any activity, before you moved out of here? Turns out they had. And so they ended up essentially giving me the keys and letting me conduct a year-long research study in this house because nobody lived there. Yeah. So that was one of the experiments. I covered the investigation. I invited a friend, Tiffany, to come and investigate with me just to see if she got similar activity to kind of validate what I had been getting. And then I did several lives there. I did a live season finale from episode 1. So after all of that had ended with season 1, people were asking me what's happened with the home because it was just so active. And so they didn't know that I had been going in and out throughout the year investigating.
Right.
So I decided I'm going to do a live and I'm going to reach out to everyone that's been watching and have them send me in questions that they want to know about the house. So I thought what I'll do is I'll take those questions and I'll pre-record them on a recorder and then set up cameras and leave those cameras, those trigger items, and the pre-recorded questions in the house overnight. And so I also pre-recorded the homeowner. And because, again, there's a whole story behind the house itself, other than just the tub, that we believe led to some of the activity. So what was supposed to be about a 15-minute live, essentially coming in, showing where I was going to set the cameras up, and then setting it up and leaving for the night, it ended up turning into about an hour and a half long live of some crazy intense activity. And so this place, when you go in with a camera, they pretty much, they turn it on, whenever you go in there, which is unlike anywhere else I'd ever been. So that particular night, we had been having all this stuff go on. We had just come off the live. And so while I was actually plugging in the cameras that I had set up with all the different trigger items and getting that ready before when we left. And that was when that evidence, or when we captured all of that while the recorder was still going. So that was my videographer, Josh, who was with me. And again, the house, we were probably there for another 6 months. And the homeowner was like, okay, now that we found all this stuff, she's like, I've got some family members that are moving down here. And so I want to fix the house up so that they can move in. And she's like, what can we do to get rid of it? And so, I don't do that. I don't cross anything over. I don't bless houses or anything like that. I pretty much come in and try to either debunk or figure out there's activity. So I had been sitting next to a demonologist at a convention that I was doing. And we really, hit it off, had a lot in common. So I turned the case over to him, my files, and showed him all the different stuff we had captured. to see if he could help us out. So he actually came up. He ended up doing doing the minor rites of and so and essentially doing an exorcism on the home. And he allowed us to film it, which he typically doesn't do. So he allowed us to film it and document the process. And so the next episode ended up being sort of the conclusion and showing. And it was just absolutely amazing to see, to have the trigger items, to have the recorders out while he's doing his rituals, to see the different things and how it reacted. And we had some pretty vile reactions. I mean, we even had the house catch on fire. The floor caught on fire during while we were doing this. Yeah, when he was lighting his candle, it was a 10-hour process. And while he was lighting the candle, it flicked out and we started smelling something burning, and the carpet had caught on fire where this ember shoots out. And then just after, when we got that put out, an ember shoots off the candle, hits a mattress that's sitting there and catches the mattress on fire. So it was unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. So that's just one of the little tidbits from the house on Sunset Hill, and just how defiant some of the activity was inside there.
That is awesome. Miranda, we are up against the end of the show. I've got more evidence than I can put out to this round. But how can people see all this stuff again so they can check out what you're talking about, especially the burning carpet?
Absolutely. So you can go back and you can watch all 4 seasons of Ghost Biker Explorations on www.ghostbikerexplorations.com. You can watch it on the Ghost Biker Explorations YouTube channel or Facebook page. All of this evidence that he's shown tonight are part of different episodes. And so you can go in and watch each of those episodes from the season. And then also, if you're interested in checking out some of the episode or evidence that we've captured here at the jail, or either doing a guided ghost hunt with myself and Dr. Sumner, or even doing one on your own, you can do that by going to the Historic Scott County Jail Facebook page or www.historicscottcojail.com.
Well, thank you, Miranda. You're the perfect guest. That's just what I like. Tell me your stories, and you did. So, wow. So we'll talk to you soon, and thanks again for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Take care now. All right, folks, you heard her, and if you saw the evidence I saw, you got to have a little bit of a feeling in the back of your neck. So check her out. It's ghostbikerexplorations.com, and obviously we're all going to need to see it. I do want to say real briefly, we do have the XCon coming up next month on the 13th and 14th, $29 a day. You get to stay at home and watch it right there on your computer screen or your smart TV. I want to show you just a real brief clip. One of the things I'm going to be showing, this is one small part of a investigation I did in a hotel in Kansas, where we have the world's largest ghost hunt. So, Race, can you show that one real briefly?
I need you to tell me as clear as you can. Did somebody kill you?
Do you want help? Oh.
Somebody killed you? Is that what you're telling me? Okay, stop the meters.
My battery just died on my speaker.
That happened a lot there. When I would ask them to stop the meters, they would, and wait for the next question, and they kick it up again. And that clip will be on my show, my presentation on Saturday the 14th. Whitley Strieber will be there. There's a man who needs no introduction, and he's going to be talking about contact stories since he published Communion. Preston Dennett, he's one I haven't talked much about, but he's an author of 28 books on the paranormal, especially UFOs. Been a UFO investigator for 36 years, and he's going to be discussing abduction experiences. And Lisa Martin will be there. It's another one I haven't got to talk much about. She is the director of Paranormal Science Lab, and she's on Dark Ozarks. And she's going to be talking about the Hornet Spook Light, which I've been there. I haven't seen it yet, but there are spook lights all over the country. There's 1 or 2 right here in North Carolina. I know there's some in other places. But the one down in Joplin, Hornet Spook Light, Western Missouri, is old. I mean, the old American Indian tribes talked about it. It's incredible. So I want you all to think about this. Again, no $4 a gallon, $5 a gallon gas. You don't need to worry about finding a hotel. You don't need to worry about finding a restaurant. Sit at home, watch it, and it is substantially cheaper than most ghost conferences. So 13th and 14th, I want to see you there. And until then, folks, you all stay spooked. What?